The envelope arrived on a rainy Tuesday, thin as a promise and heavy as a lie, and it found its way into the hands of a man who had already learned how easily dignity could be traded for survival. The paper smelled faintly of cheap perfume and money, and inside it was an offer that made his stomach tighten before his mind even finished reading. He was being paid to ruin a blind date with a dwarf woman, to embarrass her so badly that she would never show her face in public matchmaking circles again. He stood in his small kitchen, rain tapping against the window like a slow countdown, and for the first time in years, he felt something worse than fear. He felt ashamed of how quickly he considered saying yes. If you believe that kindness still matters in a world that often rewards cruelty, take a moment right now to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel for more stories about second chances and unexpected humanity. He was a single father named Aaron, 38 years old, with tired eyes that had forgotten how to dream beyond the next bill. His mornings began before dawn, packing lunches with the precision of someone who could not afford mistakes, and his nights ended with him staring at the ceiling, calculating how long he could keep pretending everything was fine for his 8-year-old son. Life had not collapsed all at once for Aaron. It had eroded slowly, like stone worn down by water, after his wife died in a car accident 5 years earlier. Grief had hollowed him out, and responsibility had filled the empty space with pressure. Medical bills, rent increases, and the cost of raising a child alone had turned him into a man who took side jobs he never spoke about, jobs that required silence more than skill. The offer came through a man he barely knew, a friend of a friend who spoke in careful tones and never used names. There was a wealthy client involved, someone's family, someone with influence, who believed the woman in question was bringing shame by seeking love publicly. The plan was simple and cruel. Aaron would go on the blind date, behave in a calculatedly humiliating way, and ensure that the evening ended with laughter that was not kind. In return, he would receive enough money to cover 2 months of rent and his son's school fees. The math made sense, the morality did not. On the evening of the date, Aaron dressed in his only clean button-down shirt, its collar frayed from too many washes. He practiced indifference in the mirror, trying to convince himself that he was just playing a role, that no real harm would come from one bad night. The restaurant was modest but warm, with amber lights and the soft clatter of cutlery creating an illusion of intimacy. When he arrived early and sat at the small table by the window, his hands shook slightly, not from nerves about meeting someone new, but from the weight of what he planned to do. She arrived exactly on time. Her name was Lila, and she moved with a confidence that did not ask permission. She was small in stature, yes, but her presence filled the space in a way Aaron had not expected. Her hair was neatly styled, her clothes chosen with care, and her eyes carried a quiet alertness, as if she had learned to read rooms quickly for safety. People glanced, as they always did, some with curiosity, others with poorly hidden judgment, but she met none of it with apology. Aaron felt something shift inside him, an uncomfortable awareness that this was not a caricature, not a joke, but a real person who had arrived with hope. The plan was to be dismissive, to exaggerate reactions, to turn her body into the evening's unspoken punchline. He began awkwardly, letting his eyes linger too long, sighing as if inconvenienced. He spoke loudly about shallow topics, steering the attention of nearby tables toward them. Each small cruelty felt heavier than the last, and yet he continued, telling himself that stopping now would make everything pointless. Lila watched him carefully, and as the minutes passed, her expression changed, not into embarrassment, but into something steadier, something sadder. Instead of shrinking, she straightened. Instead of leaving, she stayed. She did not lash out or cry. She simply observed him with a kind of clarity that made his chest tighten. She spoke about her day, about her work with children who had disabilities more severe than her own, about the joy she found in helping them feel seen. She did not ask for his approval. She did not apologize for existing. And in that moment, Aaron realized the terrible truth. The only person being exposed was him. The restaurant grew quieter as if the world itself leaned in. Aaron felt the stares shift, no longer aimed at Lila, but at him. His behavior, once meant to humiliate her, now reflected his own emptiness. Lila's calm presence turned his cruelty into a spectacle he could no longer control. His mind raced, searching for the script he had rehearsed, but the words tasted bitter now. The money suddenly felt smaller, dirtier. When the meal ended, Lila thanked him for coming. There was no sarcasm in her voice, only a gentle finality. She told him she hoped he found whatever piece he seemed to be missing. Then she stood, paid her share, and walked out with her head high. Aaron remained seated, surrounded by the wreckage of his intentions, feeling as though something fundamental had cracked open inside him. He did not take the money that night. He left the restaurant and walked for hours through rain-soaked streets, replaying every moment. He thought of his son asleep at home, trusting him to be better than the world had been to them. He thought of Lila's eyes, steady and unafraid, and how she had endured without bitterness. For the first time in years, Aaron cried openly, not just for his wife or his struggles, but for the man he had almost become. The next morning, Aaron returned the envelope, unopened, to the address he had been given. There was no note, only silence. He braced himself for consequences, but none came. Instead, something quieter happened. He began to change. He found steadier work, longer hours, honest exhaustion. He volunteered at his son's school, slowly rebuilding a sense of worth that had nothing to do with shortcuts. Weeks later, by chance or fate, Aaron saw Lila again at a community event. She was laughing with a group of children, her joy unguarded. He did not approach her, did not interrupt her life with apologies she had not asked for. But she noticed him. Their eyes met, and she smiled, a small acknowledgement that carried no resentment. In that moment, Aaron understood that redemption was not about being forgiven, but about choosing, again and again, to be better. Life did not become easy overnight. Bills still came, grief still visited, and loneliness still lingered in quiet moments. But something had shifted in Aaron's core. He began teaching his son about kindness not as a virtue to admire, but as a responsibility. He told him that every person carried battles invisible to others, and that dignity was not something anyone had the right to take away. Months later, Aaron learned through mutual acquaintances that Lila had started a support group for people with dwarfism and their families, creating a space where stories like hers were no longer whispered. She had turned pain into purpose, and in doing so, had unknowingly saved a man from losing himself entirely. If this story touched your heart even a little, if it made you pause and reflect on how small choices can change lives, please take a moment to like this video, share it, and stay connected with the channel. Your engagement helps keep stories like this alive. And before the ending, we ask you from the heart, comment below with one word that represents what this story made you feel. In the end, Aaron understood that the night he was paid to ruin someone else's dignity became the night his own. Conscience was restored. Lila's reaction did not change her worth, because it had never been in question. It changed everything about him. And sometimes, that is how quiet miracles happen, not with applause or grand gestures, but with one person choosing grace when cruelty expects compliance.